वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते 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 वासुदेवाय।
Text 1. स होवाच
स उवाच
स एष देहात्ममानिनां सत्त्वादि गुण विशेष विकल्पित कुशलाकु
स एष देहात्ममानिनां सत्त्वादि गुणविशेष विकल्पित कुशलागु
कुशलाकुशल समवहार विनिर्मित विविध देवालिभिर्वियोग समयोग्यादि अनादि
कुशलाकुशल समवहार विनिर्मित विविध देहावधिभिर् वियोग संयोगाद्यनादि
संसारानुभवस्य द्वारभूतेन षड इन्द्रियवर्गेण तस्मिन्
संसारानुभवस्य द्वारभूतेन षडेन्द्रियवर्गेण तस्मिन्
दुर्गाध्ववद् असुगमे धवन्य आपतित ईश्वरस्य भगवतो विष्णोः
दुर्गाधवद् असुगमे ध्वन्य आपतित ईश्वरस्य भगवतो विष्णुर्
वशवर्तिन्या मायया जीवलोकोऽयं यथा वणिक् सार्थोऽर्थपरः स्व
वशवर्तिन्या मायया जीवलोकोऽयं यथा वणिक् सार्थो अर्थपरस्व
स्वदेह निष्पादित कर्मानुभवः संसानवद् अशीवत मायाम्
स्वदेह निष्पादित कर्मानुभव अशिवत मायाम्
संसारात् त्वयां गतो नाद्यापि विफल बहु प्रतियोगेह तत्तापोपशमनि
संसाराटव्यां गतो नाद्यापि विफल बहु प्रतियोगेस्तत्तापोपशमं मुनिम्
हरि गुरु चरणारविंद मधुकरानु पदवीं अवरुंधे
हरि गुरु चरणारविंद मधुकरानुपदवीं अवरुंधे. May I, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Translation. When King Parikshit asked Shukadeva Goswami about the direct meaning of the material forest, Shukadeva Goswami replied as follows. My dear king, a man belonging to the mercantile community, Manik, is always interested in earning money. Sometimes he enters the forest to acquire some cheap commodities like wood and earth and sell them in the city at good prices. Similarly, the conditioned soul, being greedy, enters this material world for some material profit. Gradually, he enters the deepest part of the forest, not really knowing how to get out. Having entered the material world, the pure soul becomes conditioned by the material atmosphere, which is created by the external energy under the control of Lord Vishnu. Thus, the living entity comes under the control of the external energy, Daivi Maya. Living independently and bewildered in the forest, he does not attain the association of devotees who are always engaged in the service of the Lord. Once in the bodily conception, he gets different types of bodies, one after the other, under the influence of material energy and impelled by the modes of material nature, Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. In this way, the conditioned soul goes sometimes to the heavenly planets, sometimes to the earthly planets, and sometimes to the lower planets and lower species. Thus, he suffers continuously due to different types of bodies. These sufferings and pains are sometimes mixed. Sometimes they are very severe and sometimes they are not. These bodily conditions are acquired due to the conditioned soul's mental speculation. He uses his mind and five senses to acquire knowledge, and these bring about the different bodies and different conditions. Using the senses under the control of the external energy, Maya, the living entity suffers the miserable conditions of material existence. He is actually searching for relief, but he is generally baffled, although sometimes he is relieved after great difficulty. Struggling for existence in this way, he cannot get the shelter of pure devotees who are like bumblebees engaged in loving service at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Purport. The most important information in this verse is Hari Guru Charanaravindha Madhukara Anupadavim. In this material world, the conditioned souls are baffled by their activities and sometimes they are relieved after great difficulty. On the whole, the conditioned soul is never happy. He simply struggles for existence. Actually, his only business is to accept the spiritual master, the Guru, and through him, he must accept the lotus feet or the Lord. This is explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. People struggling for existence in the forests or cities of the material world are not actually enjoying life. They are simply suffering different pains and pleasures, generally pains that are always inauspicious. They try to gain release from these pains, but they cannot due to ignorance. For them, it is stated in the Vedas, Tad Vijnanartham Sagurum Eva Abhijachet. When the living entity is lost in the forest of the material world, in the struggle for existence, his first business is to find a bona fide guru who is always engaged at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. After all, if he is at all eager to be relieved of the struggle for existence, he must find a bona fide guru and take instructions at his lotus feet. In this way, he can get out of the struggle. Since the material world is compared herein to a forest, it may be argued that in Kali Yuga, modern civilization is mainly situated in cities. A great city, however, is like a great forest. Actually, city life is more dangerous than life in the forest. If one enters an unknown city without friend or shelter, living in that city is more difficult than living in a forest. There are many big cities all over the surface of the globe, and wherever one looks, he sees the struggle for existence going on 24 hours a day. People rush about in cars going 70 and 80 miles an hour, constantly coming and going, and this sets the scene with the great struggle for existence. One has to rise early in the morning and travel in that car at breakneck speed. There is always the danger of an accident, and one has to take great care. In his automobile, the living entity is full of anxieties, and his struggle is not at all auspicious. Apart from human beings, other species like cats and dogs are also struggling very hard day and night for existence. Thus, the struggle for existence continues, and the conditioned soul changes from one position to another. For a while, he is a child, but he has to become a boy. From a boy, he has to change into a youth, and from youth to manhood and old age. Finally, when the body is no longer workable, he has to accept a new body in a different species. Giving up the body is called death, and accepting another body is called birth. The human form is an opportunity to take shelter of the bona fide spiritual master, and through him, the Supreme Lord. This Krishna consciousness movement has been started to give an opportunity to all the members of human society who are misled by foolish leaders. No one can get out of this struggle for existence, which is full of miseries, without accepting a pure devotee of the Lord. No material attempt changes from one position to another, and no one actually gains relief from the struggle for existence. The only resort is the lotus feet of of a bona fide spiritual master, and through him, the lotus feet of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, I mean, since there are so few of us, I think it's a very good opportunity that we can have a more in-depth and personal discussion. Just in case you have something to say, please feel free. I mean, we can have more discussion today. So, Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. So, there are uncountable living entities. We can't even say trillions. There's quadrillion and God knows how many quadrillion living entities. There's no count of living entities in the universe. And out of those, like a very, very nearly, infinitesimal fraction is human beings. And out of those human beings, also an infinitesimal fraction have actually any access to Krishna consciousness. Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan Ji, who has that great fortune to be associated with a pure devotee who can tell him about Krishna, the real purpose of life. This material world means birth, old age, disease, and death only, nothing else. You may become the president of India, you may become a millionaire in Las Vegas or Florida, or you may be living in Switzerland or wherever. Eventually there is death. So in this material world, whether you are in a good situation or in a bad situation, one thing is certain, that you are always in a dangerous position. At any moment, it is going to be finished. At any point, it can be finished, and it is definitely going to be finished. So whether it's short duration or a long duration, it has to be finished, whatever you have in this life. Therefore, the only aim of human life should be to get out of this danger. If you're sitting on a beach enjoying picnic and there's a tsunami coming, you're not going to sit there and admire the beautiful view of the waves. You're going to run for your life. Because if you don't run as fast as you can, you will be swallowed by that water. So just like that, if you do not understand the nature of this material world, you will be swallowed by it. So somehow or the other, we have attained this position. And as we have seen in the last chapter also, the illusion of happiness that we carry is actually just different types of miseries packaged together. And in the last verse that we were reading yesterday, we read that, there is only hope for happiness. This merchant is always hoping for happiness. You see, for example, a small child is playing, and the mother and father, they tell him, soon, you'll grow up, you'll become a doctor or an engineer. And the child enjoys that. Oh, wow, I'll become a doctor or an engineer. And he, thinks like that. So his happiness is in that hope. And he studies like 12 years, 16 years just to become somebody. Then he becomes a doctor or an engineer. And then people tell him, actually, once you have your own family, then you'll be happy. So he marries and he gets his own family. And he works hard, very hard. And because as soon as you have family, you have responsibility. You have to work very hard. And he works very hard simply in the hope that the children will grow and he'll become happy. Then he works very hard for their education, for their welfare, and then he becomes old. And then someone tells him, hey, when you retire, when the children are all grown up and responsible, you'll become happy. But when that time comes, his body is already old and sick and miserable. So he's eating medicines, taking injections, and he's hoping that one day when when he has no responsibilities, he'll be happy. But that day never comes. So a materialistic person actually lives only in hopes. He never really, he gets some some little glimpses of happiness, but he really never achieves happiness. He just lives in this illusion of future, the illusion of hope. And that is the reality, not just in India, everywhere else. So people just live in this hope of happiness, but they never really attain. And that's why you see world over people are simply miserable. No one is really happy. So somehow or the other, and the situation is also so dangerous. Materialistic pursuits are so painful. And they are, needless to say, they are very sinful also. Like in the scriptures, it is mentioned that even the work of a Brahmana, Srila Prabhupada explains in Bhagavad Gita, that even the work of a Brahmana is covered with some fault. There is animal sacrifice, you have to, use your own pious credits to help others attain their material desires. So in this way, there is a fault even in the activities of a Brahmana. What to speak of Kshatriya or Shudra or Vaishya. And in this age of Kali especially, when we are all lower than Shudras, every activity of ours is full of sin. Imagine all the devotees love to have cars. Here in Europe, in India, everywhere devotees have cars. But what do you think is happening when you're driving a car? First of all, car is made of steel, rubber, glass, and other things, which are extracted in a very cruel way from the earth. Earth is dug up with huge machinery, and that steel is then used to make car bodies. So that is aparadh against earth. That's a sin against Mother Earth. Then when you drive that car, obnoxious petroleum fuels are burned, which are polluting Mother Earth, which are again dug out of earth. So again, it's like blood being taken out of Mother Earth's body. And then you drive that car, and uncountable living entities are getting killed by your wheels. So that is also a sin that is going to you. So you see, in this way, living entity has to always suffer. So you see, these are sins for the future. Now it's very nice to drive a Mercedes or a BMW or a Toyota. But in the future, Yamaraj is making a count of all these sins that we are committing. So you see, so city life is so dangerous. And what to speak of so many troubles that we face in city life. Accidents, and then so many things are going on all the time. And on top of that, the environment is always hellish. Cities are hellish because there are all sorts of degraded people. There are bars and pubs where people are committing sinful activities, illicit sex, meat eating, gambling. They are like centers of enjoyment in a city like, this the whole word that they use nowadays, nightlife. This city has a vibrant nightlife. It means that they are very vibrant in breaking the four regulative principles. So this is a hellish situation, lower than human beings. So in such a situation, we are also exposed. Actually, it is mentioned that you get 1/8 of the karma of the land in which you live. 1/8 karma directly comes. So if you're living in Bombay, 1/8 the karma of Bombay is directly come to you. So you can imagine how dangerous the situation is, and what to speak of all the animal slaughter and other things that go on. So you see, we are already like cities are worse than jungles. So it's a very tough struggle for existence. You have to take public transport or drive your own car. Now, someone may very prestigiously say, hey, I drive my car to my office. for 2 hours every morning, 2 hours every evening I'm driving. Now that may look very prestigious, but actually it's so foolish, such a waste of time. And when you're driving, you can't do anything else because you have to pay attention to the road. Otherwise, any moment accident can happen. So we see valuable human birth is getting wasted in such activities. So cities are worse than jungles. And then again, one has to work and work and work hard all his life. So this human birth is very rare. Uttishta jagrat prapya varan nibodh. Shurasya dharaya nishta duratyaya durgam pathastat kavayo matiti. It's a very, very difficult path that we have chosen. Getting out of this material nature is practically impossible. In human birth, we may think we are very intelligent, but actually we are heading towards animalistic life again. So we should be very, very careful. So to get relief from this struggle, one has to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. What does that mean? So that means the spiritual master gives education. The English master teaches English, dance master teaches dance, spiritual master teaches spiritual. So we have to take that education. One has to take the shelter of pure devotee Vaishnava and then take his instructions. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Ask questions, take instructions, and render service. That's the path of spiritual life. And then one has to follow those instructions. Because if one does not follow the instructions, this will just remain an academic process. It will have no value. Like now we see in our own movement also. Now Janmashtami is coming and it will be celebrated like 20 times. And in all these occurrences, people will simply waste their time. Now you see, devotees have already run away in the anticipation of Janmashtami celebration. So you see, there was a time when Holi and Diwali were very auspicious festivals in our country. People were worshipping the Supreme Lord on those days. Now no one knows. So very soon you see even Janmashtami is becoming like this, even amongst devotee community. No one really knows. Srila Prabhupada's instructions are very clear that fasting all day and reading Krishna book, for meditating on the pastimes of Krishna. But now we don't do that. For us, Janmashtami is just about cooking a lots of prasad and dressing nicely and running here and there. And Katha is just done for the name's sake. That should never happen. We should use this time to meditate more deeply on the Supreme Lord. Understanding the purpose of Lord's appearance. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata jaktva deham punar janmaneti mameti. So Arjuna, Krishna is saying, Janma karma chame divyam, my activities and my appearance and activities are transcendental. So the Jaktva Deham Punarjanmaneti, one who understands, Evam Yo Veti Tatvata, one who understands that. Tattva, he understands the substance of that, one who realizes this fact. Jaktva Deham Punarjanmaneti, he never takes birth after leaving this body. Krishna is again repeating the same message. Mam upetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramapata. So those who attain me, they don't return to this world. But the essence is evam yo veti tattvata. To understand the subject matter very deeply, to understand the substance. So that means it requires a great deal of focused study, scrutinizing study, meditation, deep meditation on Lord's activities, deep meditation on understanding who is the Lord and why he appears here. So that is Janmashtami. If you see the first few chapters of Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada is not telling any story at all. We are all only discussing the true purpose of the appearance of the Lord. Why the Lord appeared and how he appeared. So we have to meditate like that. So if you see, that book is not just some collection of verses, but that book is actually a deep meditation on the purpose of appearance of the Supreme Lord. So if we think like this, so if we use this opportunity to study Srimad Bhagavatam and Nectar of Devotion, understanding the character of Lord, his activities, his character, his reasons, then we are actually taking true benefit of Janmashtami. Otherwise, it becomes another Hindu ritual. We just run here and there, okay, and we enjoy a feast, we look at beautiful women and we do such things. We'll waste our time. That fasting will simply become a torture for us. Fasting on Janmashtami means that we spend more time in meditating on the Supreme Lord, not organizing big festivals where non-devotees will come and waste their time and our time. So you see, so that can only happen when you take the shelter of a bona fide guru. So it's very important bona fide guru and his shelter. Both the things are important. If the guru is not giving you proper education, he is not bona fide. If you are not taking proper education, then you are not bona fide. So we have to see where the link is getting broken, and we have to repair it. So we have to accept the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master and advance in. Actually, if we are not advancing in bhakti, we are actually degrading. In bhakti, no one remains static. If after 15, 20 years we are still the same, we haven't developed any sort of advancement, then we are actually degrading in bhakti. We are becoming used to it. Then we'll become dharmadvati, a hypocrite. Our desires and aspirations will remain materialistic, but we'll put up the dress of a Vaishnava. But our hearts will be contaminated. And that's the reason why we're not able to attain Krishna. We must have that intense desire to attain Krishna. And that can only happen when we realize how miserable this material world is. That is the only way, by hearing the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master. In fact, that's the hallmark of a bona fide spiritual master. He will tell you about the miseries of this material world and the glories of the spiritual world and how to attain those. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments?
I have one question about this bona fide spiritual master. So, how does it work? That the spiritual master has been bona fide before, but then, for example, takes up Sampasagya or this kind of things more, or like doesn't follow maybe Srila Prabhupada so nicely as it was before. So when you have taken the first shelter of him, so how does it work then? Like, it's just like, okay, he connects you with Parampara and that's it, and you just take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, or how is it?
So bona fide spiritual master and his shelter, both are important. So taking the shelter means following the instructions very specifically. So one has to understand a few things here. First of all, Guru is not a person, but Guru is a tattva, a principle. Guru is a principle. So Guru transcends time. It's not like Guru is okay in 1972, there was Srila Prabhupada, now he's not there. No, it's not like that. Guru Tattva is eternal. As long as there is Krishna, there will be Guru. And since Krishna is forever, Guru is also forever. There's no question of Guru being lost at any time. Now, when we embody that Tattva, then we become also Guru. Amara Agya hai Guru, Tara hai Desh. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is specifying that Tattva there. Grahe rahi Krishna Nama Nirantar Laiva. Jare dekha tare kaha Krishna Pradesh. So always chant Krishna's names and glories and always preach these glories. So it's not like we are just, like machine, we are just reciting the names like a tape recorder. No. We must be doing it with full consciousness. So we must be constantly remembering Krishna and preaching his glories to whoever can hear. Jare dekha tare kaha Krishna Pradesh. So we have to follow the instructions. So according to time, place, and circumstance, Krishna sends many spiritual masters. One has to take their shelter. But of course, to take shelter of spiritual master, also one must be qualified. One must have some basic knowledge of Shastras. Like in ISKCON, we have a rule that everyone should take Bhakti Shastri before becoming a disciple. That way, one will have some understanding. So it's not that one has become a guru, now one is delivered already. No, actually, one should be delivered himself before one becomes a guru. But if that's not the case, like Bhakti Vinod Thakur or Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, that even a Madhyamadhikari can become a guru, but then he must propagate the message as it is given by his spiritual master, who should be a Uttam Adhikari. So Madhyamadhikari can also be a guru, but his message must be unadulterated. Because because Uttam Adhikari Guru, he's Tattvadarshi, he has seen Krishna. So whatever he speaks is the truth. But a Madhyamadhikari has no such access. But he has access to the spiritual master, his spiritual master. So he should repeat the message of his bona fide spiritual master as it is. Then he is also situated on the same platform of Uttamadhikari. If one deviates and one out of false ego starts propagating his own message, mixing his own message with the bona fide message, then that becomes polluted. Then the guru is not bona fide. So we must always compare the message of the Guru with the Shastra and see if it is sticking to the same principle. For example, we can test every instruction of Srila Prabhupada and we'll find it conforming 100% to the scriptures, Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
Yes. So, anybody else has something to say? I'm just so few today. We continue. Text 2. Yasyam uhava ete shad indriya namanah karmana dasyava evate.
Yasyam uhava ete shadindriya namana karmana dasyava evate.
Tad yatha purushasya dhanam yat kinchid dharmopayikam bahu krichradigatam.
यथा पुरुषस्य धनं यत् किञ्चित् कर्मोपायिकं बहु
बहुकृच्छ्राधिगतम्
कृतं साक्षात्
साक्षात् परम पुरुषाराधन लक्षणो योसौ धर्मस्.
साक्षात्
साक्षात् परम पुरुषार्थः
पुरुषार्थः
लक्षणो योऽसौ धर्मस्
धर्मस्तं तु सांपराय उदाहरन्ति तत् धर्म्यं धनम दर्शन स्पर्शन श्रवणा वादना वग्राण संकल्प व्यवसाय.
धर्मस्थं तु संपराय उदाहरन्ति तद्धर्म्यं धनं दर्शन स्पर्शन श्रवणात्मस्वदानभक्षरान् संकल्प.
ग्राम्योपभोगेन गुणाथस्याजितात्मनो यथा सार्थस्य विलुप्यन्ति.
ग्राम्योपभोगेन यथा सार्थस्य विलुप्यन्ति.
Yes, please. Someone like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. May I read?
Yes, please.
Translation. In the forest of material existence, the uncontrolled senses are like plunderers. The conditioned soul may earn some money for the advancement of Krishna consciousness, but unfortunately, the uncontrolled senses plunder his money through sense gratification. The senses are plunderers because they make one spend his money unnecessarily for seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, desiring, and willing. In this way, the conditioned soul is obliged to gratify his senses, and thus all his money is spent. This money is actually acquired for the execution of religious principles, but it is taken away by the plundering senses. Purport. Purva janmarjita vidya purva janmarjitam dhanam agre dhavati dhavati. By following the principles of the Varnashrama Dharma, one attains a better position in the material world. One may be rich, learned, beautiful, or high-born. One who has all these assets should know that they are all meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, when a person is misguided, he misuses his high position for sense gratification. Therefore, the uncontrolled senses are considered plunderers. The good position one attains by executing religious principles is vested as the plundering senses take it away. By executing religious principles under the laws of Varnashrama Dharma, one is placed in a comfortable position. One may very easily use his assets for the further advancement of Krishna consciousness. One should understand that the wealth and opportunity one gets in the material world should not be squandered in sense gratification. They are meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. This Krishna conscious movement is therefore teaching people to control the mind and five knowledge acquiring senses by a definite process. One should practice a little austerity and not spend money on anything other than the regulative life of devotional service. The senses demand that one see beautiful things. Therefore, money should be spent for decorating the deity in the temple. Similarly, the tongue has to be taste good food, which should be brought and offered to the deity. The nose can be utilized in smelling the flowers offered to the deity, and the hearing can be utilized by listening to the vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, the senses can be regulated and utilized to advance Krishna consciousness. Thus, a good position might not be spoiled by material sense gratification in the form of illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. One spoils an opulent position in the material world by driving cars, spending time in nightclubs, or tasting abdominal food in restaurants. In this way, the plundering senses take away all the sets that the conditioned soul has acquired with great difficulty. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Purva Janmarjita Vidya, Purva Janmarjitam Dhanam, Agre Dhavati Dhavati. So, in the due course of life, all these are attained. So, what wealth and education we have got in this birth is a result of our activities of previous life. But what does Srimad Bhagavatam have to say about this? One who has all these assets should know that they are all meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. This statement has actually come from Srimad Bhagavatam first canto. You know, Dharmasya apavargasya nartho arthaya kalpate narthasya dharma ekantasya kamo labhaya smrita. All occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. See, imagine this situation. You have just few rupees in your pocket and you're feeling hungry. Are you going to use this money to watch a movie, or are you going to use it to buy some food? So you see, whatever we have attained in this life is a result of our previous karmas. So if there is a somewhat comfortable situation now, we have earned it through our own pious activities of previous birth. Now, if we use it in sense gratification, we are again going to use it for sinful purpose. So eventually it would be lost and would be reduced to a pauper. That's why you see, for example, like you see here in the West, now poverty is rising. The governments are slowly turning poor and people are turning more agitated and poverty stricken because good karma is finished. Now only the suffering will remain because punya is finished now. That was so. Narthasya dharma ekantasya. So this artha is only meant for dharma ekantasya, only for ultimate occupational duty, not for sense gratification. Kamo labhaya hi smrita, not for that. The money is just to buy the rations for the home, not to use it for sense gratification. So one's senses should only be used in the service of the Lord, because this is a very, very rare opportunity we have got to escape this world. Kamasya nendriya pritir labho jivete yavat. Jivasya tattva jigyasa nartho yaschyeha karmabhi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life for self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. One should only work to keep the body and soul together and spend the rest of the time in acquiring the knowledge of Krishna. Because this lifetime is too short. Like we were discussing the example of Lomash Rishi yesterday. This lifetime is too short. The lifetime of Brahma is also too short to realize the Supreme. Because our ahankar is so subtle and has captured us so strongly that we are not able to give it up so easily. So one should use all one's assets for the service of the Lord and nothing else. Especially the most important one is our intelligence. That should never be used. Dharmasya apavargasya na artho arthaya kalpati. So all the activities, dharmasya, all dharma is meant for realizing the Supreme. What is this dharma? Grahastha ashram, brahmachari ashram, brahmana, kshatriya. This varnashram dharma. All the small dharmas that we have, dharma of being a mother, the dharma of being a father, dharma of being a king or a beggar, every dharma is only meant for pleasing the Supreme Lord. So whatever ability one has acquired by means of previous karma, that ability should be used only in the service of the Lord and nothing else. Otherwise, we'll be bound by the tight rope of material world. Devi eshu gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Very difficult, this maya. Gunamayi. Guna means qualities, guna means rope also. So these three qualities are like three ropes which are tying us very hard, very difficult to give up. Senses would want to see so many things. That's why Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that when you wake up in the morning, beat your mind 100 times with a shoe, in the evening 100 times with a broom. Before going to sleep, 100 times with a broom. After waking up, 100 times with a shoe. And what does that mean? Mind wants to enjoy the senses as soon as it wakes up. So we should cultivate this. Beating with a broom means we should just chant the holy names, perform Mangala Arati, think of Krishna, meditate on our miserable material condition and how we can be delivered only by the instruction of Srila Prabhupada. So in this way you beat your mind. And in the night also. Actually in the night you should pray that, my dear Lord, now I'm going to lose consciousness again. Please protect me. Krishna Krishna Rakshama. So pray like this. That's why Prabhupada advised reading Krishna book at night. So that you may have desire to attain Krishna when you go to sleep. Because you never know whether you're going to wake up in the morning or not. All the senses should only be used in the service of the Lord. Kamasya nendriya. Should not be. Desires should not be only for sense gratification. Life's desires should be only for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. Yes. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. I asked this question. Is it then that if some person comes to devotion, even if he or she gets some knowledge and still he like goes to this mundane material things, then you're not just convinced about the philosophy or the samskaras that are from or maybe everything together, that you just can't pull back.
See, Krishna is like Arjuna has asked the same question. Why is it that one feels impelled to act sinfully?
Yeah.
Even against one's own desires. So Krishna is explaining Kama. It is Kama Isha. So this one's own lust which is impelling one. It's very simple, even in devotion we can see. So as devotees, we want to enjoy very opulent prasadam. In fact, it's seen as some kind of a medal, of very opulent prasadam, very nice. So this is not good actually. We are actually just lusty. We are not thinking of prasadam as mercy. We are thinking of prasadam as some tasty food. So we have no consciousness that this is Krishna's mercy which is coming. So for example, if we go to eat prasadam and someone serves us some boiled rice with little bit of dal, are we going to be happy to accept it? Or will we be disappointed that there is no paneer makhni here, there is roti or something? So you see, in this way, we are actually in the name of service of the Lord, we are gratifying our own senses. We should be very simple in our outlook, simple in our behavior. Simplicity should always come. Simple living and high thinking. So even in bhakti, we have to be very cautious. So it's not that, we may think, okay, I am doing bhakti, I'm safe. No, even in bhakti, we are actually trying to satisfy our senses. What to speak of those who are grossly satisfying themselves. So this nature, it's our own nature actually which is compelling us. So we have to be very meditative. This will not happen without study of scriptures. One may dance 1,000,000 times in a temple, one may attend 1,000 festivals and hear 10,000 Sunday feast lectures. It's not going to work. Unless one feels the desire within the heart to improve. See, in the beginning, it's not that one will become pure immediately. But one should have the desire to improve. One should be willing to do it anyhow. Just like we see even devotees, they work excessively hard to acquire this education, that education, to take this job or that job. I mean, any material education is generally unpleasant. But still people work hard so that they can enjoy their senses. So why cannot one, desire extremely hard to attain the Supreme? How do I find Krishna? Just like Dhruv Maharaj. How do I find the Supreme Lord? He asked Narad Muni, so how do I find Supreme Lord? So you see, that should be intense desire. So unless we have intense desire, we will not be purified. If we have the desire, strong desire to be liberated, no ropes of Maya can hold us back. If we don't have the basic desire to become free from material nature, then Maya doesn't even exist, and still she will hold us back. It's our own karma. Maya is not coming to us. There's no apsaras are not flying through my window to seduce me. I am only running after them. So that's my pollution. That's my desire. Maya is simply what it is. We have to purify our desires. Hare Krishna. Yes, so anyone else has some question? Yes, Mataji, you have a question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanratan.
Chandra.
Prabhuji, this even a simple act like smelling the flower which is offered to the Lord, does that also help in increasing the security of someone who's not in devotion?
For one who's not in devotion, yes, anything will do.
Okay.
So it is anything will do, but for a devotee, no. For devotee, only this meditation will help.
Mhm.
Actually, even the instruction of the Guru means that we have to hear that instruction and meditate on it.
Mhm.
Without meditation, even the instruction is not going to help.
So for someone who's not in devotion, it does help to increase their agyat security.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Anybody else any questions? Okay, then we stop here today. So, greetings of Janmashtami to everyone. And I hope that you attain the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Please take this opportunity to remember Krishna, who he is, and what is his mission. Why does he come? Think very deeply about Krishna and how merciful he is. And think about Srila Prabhupada, who sacrificed his whole life, as Mukunda Goswami says, that Srila Prabhupada lived for others. He had no personal life. He only lived for others. So please think of it. And then you think that this mercy is actually Krishna's mercy. Srila Prabhupada and Krishna are not different in that way. Because Guru is same as Krishna. Is the same as Krishna. He embodies the same principle of mercy of the Lord. So he's one is the same and he's different. In this way, this should be our meditation on Janmashtami. So I pray that you all are very peaceful in your life. You are able to remember Krishna very nicely. And then day after, we'll have the appearance of Srila Prabhupada. So my greetings to you on that count also in advance. And congratulations and my greetings of Srila Prabhupada for today. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhuji. Happy Janmashtami to all of you.
Happy Janmashtami. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Krishna Dandavat. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Janma